The world's most distinguished expert in international human rights law is a guy named Thomas Buergenthal, and his career included serving as a judge at the International Criminal Court for a decade. Well, he came out this week and said the following about Dick Cheney, quote, "Some of us have long thought that Cheney and a number of CIA agents who did what they did in those so-called black holes should appear before the ICC. We Americans could have tried them ourselves. I voted for Obama, but I think he made a great mistake when he decided not to instigate legal proceedings against some of those people. I think, yes, that it will happen." Okay, so not only is he saying Dick Cheney and some people at the CIA should be brought to the International Criminal Court and tried, he's saying, I think it will happen. I think it's going to happen. Interesting take. Interesting take. Now, I actually disagree with him in the sense that I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe it's because I'm jaded by how little we've done to go after them up to this point. But nonetheless, time will tell if that actually does unfold in that way. But I think the bigger point here and the conversation that must be had is, why are we not having this conversation more about how it's not really an open question as to whether or not it should happen? It definitely should happen. Insofar as we give a shit about international law at all, it absolutely should happen. Okay, we're talking about a guy, and we're talking about a regime, and we're talking about a government agency that is on the record. They documented the fact that they tortured people, and they admitted that at least 25% of the people they tortured were totally innocent. Not that it even matters, because once you torture, you're the one that's breaking the law. You're the bad guy. So even if you're torturing people who you think are bad guys, well, that's still illegal under international law. So it doesn't even necessarily matter that the people were innocent. Either way, they're breaking the law. But it does make it more egregious and more immoral and unethical when you realize, oh wait, at least 25% of them they're admitting were innocent people. They said in the recent Senate report, they spoke about how we know of a certain case, one case, for example, where they poured cold water on somebody in a cold cell at night. They left. They came back in the morning. The guy was dead. He got hypothermia. He died. Also, come to find out, that guy, totally innocent, cleared of any wrongdoings. So they're admitting, in essence, to torture and murder. And we still haven't brought these people up on charges at the International Criminal Court? We're still discussing it? Now stop and think what the reaction would be from everybody if this was a regime that we dislike, if this was a regime that we disagree with, and they had internal memos admitting in fine detail to all the things that they did which were clearly illegal. What would we say? We'd be calling them an outlaw regime. We'd be calling them a terrorist sponsoring state, if not just a terrorist state, a rogue nation. They think they're above the law. And we would be calling for, in essence, regime change. And we would justify, if we wanted to, going in there, toppling the regime and putting in whoever the fuck we want to control it, as we've done in the past, time and time again. Would we consider that? Would it be cool if other nations were talking like that about us? Would we be like, oh, what do you mean? It's a totally reasonable conversation. Our guy's tortured, our regime was fucked up, our government is corrupt. Of course other nations should be discussing whether or not they should do a coup and set up a different government. It makes sense. Again, that's what we do when it's somebody else. But when we do it, they can't have that conversation about us. But see, that's the thing. The double standards are like built into the system. And it's so bad that I honestly believe even good, liberal-minded people in America, they kind of accept a certain level of hypocrisy. They kind of accept a certain kind of double standard where they say, yeah, what Bush and Cheney did was fucked up, but come on, what are you going to try him and put him in jail? Let's not be extreme. No, you know what's extreme? To not put them in jail. That's what's radical. What's radical is watching a regime admit that they tortured innocent people and killed them, and then there's no repercussions whatsoever, because now what you did is you made it a debatable issue. You made it so it's just a matter of opinion as to which American president, when they come in and out of power, well, this one was pro-torture, so he tortured. This one was anti-torture, so he didn't torture. But it's all an open question. It's a matter of discussion here. This isn't an area where there's a clear black and white answer and a right and wrong. Of course it is! Of course it is. You become the devil you're trying to avoid when you do something like torture. Actions matter. You are what you do. So if you torture, or if you murder innocent people, for example, or something like that, you're not the good guy by definition. You can't just say, I'm the good guy because I say so, therefore I am going to rationalize my clearly immoral actions. No, if you're doing the immoral actions, you're immoral. It should be fairly clear. It should be obvious. It's obvious when it's the other people, when it's other nations, but when it's us, oh, what do you mean? Bake in the double standard to the conversation. Allow a certain level of hypocrisy. And even liberals in America today are not continuing to talk about how Dick Cheney and a bunch of people at the CIA should be brought up on war crimes when they absolutely should be brought up on war crimes, not just because of CIA torture. That's just one example. But how about nobody talks about this much anymore? That's not fair. Some people do talk about this, but they don't talk about it, in my opinion, nearly as much and connect it to the idea that they should be tried. But we did invade a country that did not attack us and toppled the government and put in a new government. Okay, you cannot do that. You can't fight a war against a country that didn't initiate violence against you first, because then you're not acting in self-defense. You are crusading is what you're doing. And they can say, oh, at the time, the intelligence said this and that and that and this. That doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to the conversation. It's like if a mother kills her kid and she says, no, but you don't understand. The demons in my head told me to. I heard the voices. I had to act. So I killed the kid. That's exactly what it's like. No, but we thought that we were justified in doing it. It doesn't matter if you thought you were justified. We know now the facts dictate that you indeed were not justified. So therefore, it's a crime. Your ass should be tried, and your ass should be put in jail. You don't get to invade sovereign nations, kill minimum 200,000 civilians, basically stay there for over a decade. Now we're even fucking back in there under the Obama administration. Destroy the fucking Middle East. Torture people, lock people up without a trial, rip up the Constitution, and then decide, I'm gonna go play golf when I retire. Fuck that. You belong in a cell. And this isn't, radical lefty talk here. This is a guy who is the world's most distinguished expert in international human rights law, who worked for the court. He's a judge, saying, no, it's a clear case. He should be tried. Absolutely, 100%. And also, in conclusion here, let me just say, Buergenthal survived Auschwitz as a boy. So he got to see human rights abuses very up close, very personally. So here's a person who really, really is an expert on this issue, not just because of a whole bunch of reading and learning, which of course he did, and studying, which of course he did, but also because he witnessed it firsthand. And when a guy like this says, let's get serious here, these guys are criminals, it packs a heavy punch.